a lot of the chart is about our evolution and our growth, right? It's not just this like fixed thing that we've accomplished everything and we're like, oh, this is who I am and I've mastered all these things. No. It's what you're trying to master in this lifetime. It's your journey of this lifetime. It's all of your issues and all of your triggers and all of the solutions in one picture.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited. From the moment I wake up till the instant I go to sleep, as most of you know, my day is crazy full. I often share my schedules on good old Instagram, but for those of you who don't know, I am running 3 inspiring businesses. I have 3 gorgeous children running around the house constantly. And in between helping them with school, creating alone time with the D, and also carving out some solo soul time for myself, there is basically no room left in the day for anything else. I really do know how it feels when I load up on unhealthy foods, and it's not a great look. I don't have time to stress about these added fillers or sugars or whether my food will actually make me and my family feel good and be nutritious. And that's what I love about Philosophy Superfoods and why I started this company. I know that they are trustworthy, that they are packed with high vibe antioxidants, minerals, adaptogens that all help me deal with what the world throws at me each day. I love my life. I love my children and my jobs, and I want to be able to really thrive in all of these things and put on a bunch of different hats and roll with the punches. And Philosophy Superfoods really allows me and supports me in wearing all those hats. If you would like to stock up on our Philosophy Superfoods, which are always organic, raw, incredibly sourced nutrients, use the code IGNITED, that's IGNTD, to stock up for you and your loved ones. You and your body will feel so grateful for it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And it's a new year, and we get to celebrate new ways of looking at the world, and we are doing exactly that for you here today with Jill of Spirit Daughter.
Yes, Jill has been a dear friend for a few years now. She's even come to some of my retreats and led a circle, and she's just been an inspiration to so many people as her account has grown, and she gets to offer really approachable astrology for the masses. And I really appreciate that, where she kind of just makes it really easy for everyone to understand. And no matter if you've never opened an astrology book, you've never looked at your own chart at all. And she's just super sweet. So you're going to learn so much. Adi and I talked to her about our specific signs, and not just our sun sign, which is what people typically refer to when you ask what your sign is, but looking at our full chart, looking at other aspects of our personalities and how those connect to one another. What makes a D tick? What am I needing in terms of intimacy? And so we go into that, looking into different planets on the night that we were born or the day we were born, and really going into the details of that. And I really appreciate this because I think a lot of us maybe have read in the back of a magazine our sign of when we were born and just assume like, oh, this is just what it is, but it feel like there's more to me than just this. And there is more. There's not just astrology, right? There's so many aspects. We've brought human design experts on here. We brought all different types of spirituality and ways of looking at ourselves. And this is just one more way to get to know aspects of who you are.
Yeah. And, Jill really had to kind of go to task with me because this is not really one of my big areas. But by revealing and talking about all these different elements, all these different aspects of your chart, we got much, much deeper than that, back of the magazine Vogue version. And I think even for some of you who may be a little bit more skeptical, I think you'll see that there's a lot more depth into it. We got to talk about differences in the way Sophie and I interact, differences in terms of the way that we need social attachments. And a lot of it really made sense in the context of so much of what we've talked to you about here before. So I think that'll really, really connect. And, it's funny, when I started working with people online in the Hero program, I didn't really have spirituality as a massive part of the program. And then what I realized over the last 4 or 5 years is that for some people, this is a huge component of how they define themselves. And I think you'll see some of that. So in our new Hero 2.0 program, we went in, there's a whole section on spirituality and components that are not, I'll call them research-based, if you want to do that. And the reason is, I don't really care what makes you connect to your purpose and better relationship and better life that you live and more fulfillment and joy.
What helps you heal.
It's just about what helps you get there. And so this is a really cool discussion. Jill was a rock star, and off of a really small amount of information, had a really in-depth conversation with us. And I think you'll enjoy it.
And we challenge you, take a pause and download one of the apps like Pattern, CoStar, look up an astrology app. All you need is your time of birth and location and day you were born, and it will calculate your unique birth chart that is only unique for you. So once you do that, then you can listen to this conversation and understand yourself and the planets and what they all mean a little bit better.
Absolutely. So check it out. As usual, how I like to do this. Screenshot this, tag Jill at the Spirit Daughter, Sophie and I, and ignite it, and let us know what resonated, what new little nuanced things about yourself and your loved ones did you learn, and let us in on the secret.
We love you. Enjoy this interview.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to our fireside chat. That's not fireside. We've got the Spirit Daughter with us here today. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Wintersteen, aka Spirit Daughter. That's what people call me these days, although that is the brand name. And I'm happy to be here and talk a little bit about astrology.
Yay. We've had Jill. I've done, was it just the one retreat that you came to, or have you done two? I feel like you've done a couple events with us.
I have.
Jill's been in our
Moon Circle
for a while. A Moon Circle. She is also connected to our best friends. You know Rochelle and others, and you've just been such an inspiration to me when it comes to astrology. But really, what I love about you is that you do have a background in science and research and psychology, and I think that's.
So we can talk.
Yeah.
So we get to talk, which is the beautiful thing, because we were talking about this before. And when I met Sophie, astrology and me were
distant.
They weren't distant cousins. They were unfamiliar enemies from opposite sides of the track that never met. Like, I looked down at it. I didn't care for it at all.
Yeah, well, you come from a very academic background. So in your mind, it's like everything that falls under the umbrella of academia is what's right in the world. And then everything else doesn't make sense and isn't science-based. So therefore, it's not real.
Yeah, obviously, right? That's,
clearly. Spoken like a true Virgo.
100%. For 16 years now, I've known this woman, and many, many things for me have adjusted. So I'm really excited for this conversation because I love the scientifically informed, spiritually enlightened version of these.
Yeah.
So I think I want to start out by, how did that journey happen for you? Like, how do you go from studying neuroscience and psychology to looking at people's charts all day?
Well, so it was actually flipped. So I first started studying astrology when I was like 16. Basically when I was like 15, 16 years old, I decided I wanted to understand human consciousness, and I wanted to understand it any way possible. So at 15, 16, I started reading tons of books, and including psychology books, like intro to psychology, college textbooks, as well as astrology. And everything to me was just another way to look at the same thing, human consciousness, and to understand it and to start to unravel this huge topic. And I just didn't exclude anything. Everything was up for review. And I was very open-eyed and curious. And so I, got into astrology at a young age, and I found it really interesting. And I happen to be a Leo, and I have this theory that like Leos just all love astrology because you're like, I'm a Leo, I'm a lion, it's amazing. And it really, everything you read about Leo, you're like, yes, So, I immediately identified with it, and then I started to get deeper into it. And, it does use, terms like archetypes and things I was seeing paralleled in psychology. Just some of the language was even the same. And astrology is like an ancient psychological tool. I mean, people used it as a precursor to psychology. But then I had, I went to college, and I wanted to try and do.
Nobody can see it. You made this thing with your hands, like, and then I had to like connect to the real world where people give you degrees and stuff. I just saw you make it.
Basically.
But then, I had to do something. So I went to college and got a psych degree.
Yeah, basically. I had to get out of the woods. I took my crystals with me, my hep necklaces. I literally was in the woods tying hep necklaces doing astrology charts. And then, I went to college. And I still carried that stuff with me. But, I went to, I did my undergrad, I did grad work. And I eventually got into neuroscience, just trying to figure out this consciousness problem, trying to understand it. I just kind of went deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, and to discover it really was a rabbit hole. And then, I broke free. I was researching at Hopkins, and it was great. I was at a top research university at a young age. I mean, I was thriving. Everybody around me, I was extremely successful. But I just wasn't happy. I wasn't like aligned with who I was. I wasn't aligned with that girl with her crystals in the woods. Astrology charts. So I left. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be able to leave. I feel like a lot of people find it hard to leave when they've like done this whole track and are in this career. And so I left. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life at all. I didn't go into astrology then. And I went into yoga because I was super stressed out I was a type A, straight A's, type A. I always knew what I was doing, always on a track. Before this, I was like, oh, I'm going to, finish my doctorate degree. I'm going to do a fellowship here. I'm going to, do this. And, I was on that, you're in academics, you're a professor, right? There's a track.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. there's a clear-cut track.
Very well laid out for you.
Yeah. I look at it as like a trajectory of shoulds. Like, this is what you should do, and then you should do this next thing, and then you should do the next thing, and that's what's widely accepted.
I wish it was should. It's more like, this is what you have to do.
Yeah. This is what you have to do. Exactly.
Should would give you like a little playroom. Like,
right.
What you have to do is you have to go on like 15 job talks. You have to get a job at a mid-tier university, be there for a few years, then you get a higher tier university. Like, the whole track is laid out for you for the next 40 years. It's laid out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. It's completely laid out, and there's no room for serendipity. There's no room for coincidence. There's no room for your intuition. And these are all things like I talk about so much now. And that part of me, that girl sitting in the woods studying astrology at 16 was like screaming for those types of things. I wanted magic back in my life. So I left, but I was totally stressed out because I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do now? So I started doing yoga as a way to relieve my stress. And I would just do tons of yoga, and my teacher at the time talked me into doing a teacher training. So then I became a yoga teacher for quite some time. And then in that space, I was able to explore anatomy. I dove deep into anatomy. So that kind of got me back into the academic world, from that sort of standpoint. But then I also studied like Chinese medicine. And then I started weaving the astrology back in, and eventually started holding new moon circles, and practice. I was an Ashtangi. I did Ashtanga yoga, and they take a break on the new moon and full moon. And so like naturally built in was this space to do a new and a full moon practice in that yoga practice, which I didn't plan, and just sort of happened naturally. It's like, what do you do when you're used to getting up at 6 a.m. every day and going to the studio, and then you have the day off on the new moon? And so I started really working with new moon practices and weaving the astrology back in and teaching those. And then the workbooks and Spirit Daughter was really born out of that evolution.
I love it. So one of the things that I can see right away, and it was clear when we even scheduled this interview, you asked for essentially our chart data, right? Like, where were you born, when, hours, all this kind of stuff. And then My guess is when you meet people, when you look at that sort of stuff, it gives you this outline of who it is you're talking to and what are they going to be like, etc. So before we even started this, you said some things about my sign and Sophie's and what you saw around conflict.
Planet.
And I think I want to dive into it. First of all, because I'd love a free therapy relationship session for Sophie and I while we're doing this. Secondly, that's to me where the magic is in this conversation, is about understanding my partner or the people I'm with better. I told you this before. Like, I almost don't even care if this is real or not. What I care about is, does this help my relationship? So what did you see?
Well, I guess, on the surface, so charts are complicated, right? And basically a natal chart is a picture of the sky and all the planets when you were born, right? And so we're dealing with a lot of variables there. We're dealing with a lot of pieces of this puzzle that come together in different ways. And so most people know their sun sign, and that's what they identify with. So, a couple sentences ago, I said, I am a Leo. And most people will say, Sophie is a Taurus and you are a Virgo. Most people will look at that. Most people know their sun sign. When you flip to the back of Cosmo and read the horoscopes, that's what you're reading is your sun sign.
Every time I flip to the back of Cosmo, I always go right into the horoscope. But that is the thing I know. And you know what you said?
Or men's health. I don't know. Do they have horoscopes in men's
I don't think they have no men's health. But you said you were a Leo and it made you proud. That's the first time I realized something. When I would learn about horoscopes, I think I was like 12 or 13 years old or something. And the fact Virgo is a virgin. I got to tell you, as a 13-year-old boy,
you're like,
the virgin sign, that's like the worst. I don't think there is. Cancer is better than being a virgin.
At 13.
That's
13.
Noted.
That's the first time anybody said that. I was proud of my sign. And I remember, like, at 13, I was like, wait, that's what I got? And those are real. I think that's part of what created that weird separation from me in the beginning. I never thought about it until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, I wonder if we did like a research study, we'd probably find a lot of male Virgos not interested in astrology for that reason.
How weird is that? It's so crazy.
Yeah. And even I don't really refer to Virgo as the virgin, but I refer to Virgo as the goddess. And even that doesn't really.
Probably a 13-year-old boy does not want to be the goddess. By the way, again, I'm qualifying this with a 13-year-old heterosexual men who identify, right? Like all these other things have to be in play, but
yeah,
literally, you know what? I'm 44 years old now. I never had that thought until you said that you were proud of your sign. And I see we have a Leo. And when he found out his name is Leo because he's a Leo, and when he found out that's his sign, he wears it like a badge of honor.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. When I had my son's a Leo, and I was like, I'm so happy he's a Leo and not a Virgo or a Cancer. Nothing's wrong with those, but I wanted him to like his sign from a young age. And it's hard to be, a child and find out like, oh, my sign's Cancer. Great.
Yeah.
And I love Cancer. It's an amazing sign. And I think all signs are wonderful, but to be a child, it's
a fun sign to have. Yeah.
Leo's a fun sign to have. So I think, anyway, but getting back to sun signs and relationships. So right off the bat, we look at you two, Taurus and Virgo, and so they're both earth signs, right? So signs are categorized by the elements. We have, fire signs, we have earth signs, we have water signs, we have air signs. And so right away, we're like, they're earth signs, they're compatible, right? Your sun signs are compatible. So Virgo, Taurus, very compatible. And, every relationship, every energy, so every astrological energy has its high sides and its low sides. So Taurus has its high frequencies, its lower frequencies. Virgo, higher frequencies, lower frequencies. It's a spectrum of energy. And at any one time, we can vibrate to one side or the other. I talk about this a lot on the full moon because the full moon always reveals these things. And you guys both need to be vibrating in your highest frequency. You have to be doing the work to get out of your shadows, right? Get out of your shadow side and go to your higher sides of your signs for them to be ultimately compatible. But with your sun signs, it's a little easier, right? So we look at that and go, okay, sun sign's great. Now, if we stopped there, we'd miss some big pieces to the puzzle that is your relationship and anybody else's relationship. So the next layer we look at is the moon, right? So we go, okay, moon. So your moon sign is where the moon was when you were born, just like your sun sign was the sign the sun was in when you were born. So the moon rules your emotional body. So the sun is like your core. It's your center of your personality. If you are your own solar system, the sun is the center, it keeps you together. It's the core of who you are. The moon is your emotional body. So now we're dealing with your emotions. Now we're dealing with your your id, right? If you're going to take in, see, this is what I loved about studying psychology. We go to like Freud and we go to id, ego, super ego. So now we were in id, we're in the pure emotional state, the state that has no logic, right? Just feeling. The moon does not care about logic, cares about feeling. So we look now, okay, how are your guys' moon compatibilities, right? How are those meeting up? Sophie, you're a Taurus moon, and you're Libra, right? Libra moon.
Yeah.
So we have Libra moon. Libra moon. Now we're dealing with an air sign, Libra, and an earth sign. So we have some, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a conflict. They're an inconjunct, which is a type of aspect in astrology that on the wheel, if we look at it, they're about 150 degrees away. So astrology is like all math when we really break it down. So when we look at, they're about 150 degrees away on the astrological wheel. And that can be troubling because it is hard to merge in conjuncts. It's hard for them to understand, find common ground. It's hard for them to find common ground. But with Taurus and Libra, the benefit for you guys is that Venus is the natural planetary ruler of both Libra and Venus. Libra and Taurus. So we have Venus governing both of your moon signs, which means on an emotional level, you'll be able to connect through that Venus energy, which is love and beauty, aesthetics. It's going to be really important for you guys to live in a house that you feel calm and balanced in and is aesthetically, like I would say, I think I've seen pictures of your house and it's beautiful, but, a feng shui expert would be like a nice investment. It would actually improve your relationship. I know that sounds crazy, but
no, it's true though.
Your surroundings is actually really important for your relationship because of that Venus in there.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time and energy and hours for myself, but I think more for our family, because I know how important that is, but also for us, Adi notices those little things. It might be because of his Virgo sun, but there's this, although he's not necessarily the tidiest person, I'm not either, but although he's not necessarily the tidiest person, those piles of things bug him. So if he walks by the things, it's not like he's going to sit for hours and go through those things, but it bothers him. So I pride myself on I spent several hours yesterday organizing those things and spending love and care and listening to meditative music while I go through all those things, because for our relationship, I can feel that our home, because we spend so much time together in this space, and even more so because of the way it causes conflict when it's not nice, I really take the time and energy to do that. And we don't work with feng shui. That could be a fun thing, but I have a best friend who's an organizer, and she comes in all the time and she's doing that and kind of cleaning shop for that exact reason.
Yeah. And it also really speaks to the fact that Sophie and I definitely, coming into the relationship, didn't deal with our emotions the same way. When conflict happened, or when we get aroused, and I mean that in the excited, when we get excited in a way, we'd fire wrongly at each other. The way we fight is not compatible initially. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of the learning we had to do for years was on that. How do we get to reaching consensus? But it is those moments, and our biggest healing have come from those places where we can go back to love, connection, and such. And when we can go to that place, it almost doesn't matter so much that the way we got there was incompatible. But when we get there, it's magical.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Venus ruling both of your moon signs, is that you are trying, that is your common ground, right? So whereas your moon signs do form and in conjunct, which is a hard aspect in astrology, meaning there's not a lot of common ground, but because you have that Venus, you can return there, and you are going to get there different ways. With the Taurus moon, Sophie, you're going to want groundedness, and your emotions are going to want security, and they're going to crave attachment. And at times she's going to feel needy to you, right? It's going to feel like she needs a lot from you. And with a Libra moon, Libra is that air sign. Libra just wants to float around and isn't necessarily scattered, but just is not nearly as grounded emotionally, because you thrive on partnership. You actually need partners to help you understand your emotions. But at the same time, it's like feeling sort of that neediness and attachment from Sophie, because that Taurus moon, like if you're in your low side, right? We talked about low sides and high sides. If you're on your low side, Sophie, you're gonna project that sort of neediness and that need to have your insecurities dealt with by another person.
Yeah.
Right. That's like a low side Taurus moon is I'm feeling insecure and I need you to fix that. That's like a very low Taurus moon sign.
We may have had discussions pretty much exactly along those lines in the last 48 hours. Because when Sophie feels any lack of safety, we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, so it's not new to our listeners, but I also gave her reasons. I wish we had this information 16 years ago, because maybe it would have been clear why I gave her reasons, but I gave her reasons to feel unsafe in some ways at the beginning of our relationships, multiple. And
does that leave her moon?
We have. I mean, right? We had the first version of our relationship, then we got back together, and now married. So we've almost had like 3 iterations of our relationship, and we've learned along the way. But some of the things you're saying right now really make sense from the standpoint of when is it and why is it that Sophie all of a sudden clings and goes, wait, no. I need protection. I need like boundaries. I need real grounding, and I need to feel safe before anything else. And for me, it's interesting because by now it doesn't feel, how do I say this? It doesn't feel like it's holding us back, but I almost find it's always my role to try to get back and explain, like, how do we get back to safety so that she can go back to the place where she is radiating and loving and feeling safe.
Right. How do you get to the high side of Taurus, which is peace, stillness, creativity? Creating things. Actually, you guys are creating this podcast together, so that's amazing. But creating things with your hands together would be like, if I were advising you, which I don't do this, but if I were, I would say, hey guys, if you're having issues and you're having trouble talking to each other, or even if you just want to break from talking to each other, find some way to create something with your hands. Maybe build something together. Maybe make like an art project. Maybe garden together.
Yeah, I like that.
But something. Create something.
Well, and I also I think that for anyone listening, like the point of all of this and the reason we're sharing and opening up in this way about astrology and our relationship is because this can empower you. Like the fact that I'm a Taurus and it says that I'm, can be like my dark sides can be X, Y, and Z, and I can be controlling or whatever it is you want. Like people look at it, bullheaded, like strong-willed, like those things. Yes, you can see those traits of astrology, but the more that you know about yourself, the more information you have. Like Adi said, if 16 years ago we knew, or at the beginning of our relationship, we knew, hey, like Sophie emotionally needs these things from you to feel secure. Adi doesn't need it in that way. He needs it this other way. Mm-hmm. All that is information, so you can better interact with each other as your coupleship, and there isn't as much tension and conflict. Like that's pure medicine right there, to know more about yourself and your partner. Like the way that you even explained it just now, I've never heard it in that way before, and it makes complete sense. Like we've been going through something, and like we'll get into it in another episode maybe, but for now it's like we have something that we're going through right now where I feel some insecurity, and it's not about the past things that we went through and the cheating. And I keep saying, it's actually, if we put that stuff aside, this is still stretching me so much and making me feel unsafe. And it's not about the past stuff. And now I hear it in the way you're describing it. it has a lot to do with who I am as a person. And that's my own ownership. And that's then empowering, so that I can say, instead of being like a crazy girl who has control issues, it's more like, hey, these are the things that make me me. And here are some ways that you can make me feel safe in this moment. And then my partner can provide those things. And now we're on the same wavelength, and I can shine again and be the better version of who I am.
Right. And that's, why we have partners, because they are there to help us and hold space for us. But it's like you said, the ownership, you do have to take ownership of your moon, right? Of your moon. I'm a Scorpio moon, so I know all about that. Scorpio moon is like a very intense, very, very intense moon. So, and my husband knows, and he knows when the moon is in Scorpio, I'm going to act even more like a Scorpio moon, and he needs to just give me space. I just go into my room and I just, confine myself.
How do people find out? Because it sounds like it means something, and it's powerful if you and your partner are in these conjunct planets. And I'm assuming that doesn't only parlay to the Libra, to the moon sign, but also your sun sign, etc. How do people find out what the opposite or what the conjunct of their own sign is?
Yeah, in conjunct. You guys are in conjunct, but there's also conjunct, which is a separate terminology. So those are called aspects in astrology. You have to pull your chart and then compare your chart to your partner's chart. I actually have a blog, and I can send you guys the link that kind of breaks most of this down and says like, this is this, because your suns will either be any planet, will either be, conjunct, or it can be square, or it can be oppose each other. So when we look at the natal charts, 360 degrees. And so when we take two charts, we're comparing the angles, right, of these two wheels. So we're looking and we're saying, okay, your sun is in Taurus, your sun is in Virgo. They're both earth signs, so that's easy. They're 120 degrees away. That's a trine. That's a beneficial aspect. So, and it does get really specific. We could get into the nitty gritty, because Sophie's sun is going to be at an exact degree, and how close is that to the exact degree of your sun, right? So is it 120 exact? Probably not. Is it 110? Is it 100 degrees? So it gets, the levels of subtlety go on and on and on, because
but I love it, because this is one of those ways, it sounds like right off the bat, that the people listening right now, because here's the thing, I think this is why, maybe in addition to being a virgin at the age of 13, which was very, very much undesirable, what I'm hearing from you is, look, what everybody knows, which is the sun sign, is it's like trying to call somebody by the shoes they wear and going, hey, you're Adidas, and pretending that would explain you somehow. And a lot of us who are cynical and maybe skeptical about the idea, that's all we ever learn. All we ever learn is about the sun signs. Some people listening right now might only know that, but if you have partners, they might only be the people who only know that. And they go, well, sometimes it hits, most of the time it doesn't, so it doesn't matter. And what I'm hearing from you that is important about yourself, first of all, is there are many other additional aspects. So we talk about, obviously, we have the sun, we have the moon, we have your rising, your Mercury, your Virgo, your Mars. Like, we have all these different components that you need to pay attention to, and each one of those tells you about different aspects of who you are. So first of all, a lot more breadth, right? We talked about research and neuroscience. What the equivalent is like to say to somebody, you have an amygdala, and then trying to explain who they are as a human being. What you're saying is that's not how this works. There's more nuance. Yes. And then you add on top of it, how do you relate to your partner and people you meet? How do your individual variabilities line up with one another? And that can explain the way you interact. And now at least there's a conversation to be had. There's this nuance to discover about one another, right? Like I said, if 16 years ago somebody would tell me that when Sophie gets unsafe, she just needs to stand firmly on the ground and make me explain to her that there's no risk and that we're good and that I'm here for her, and then feel that.
Reassurance.
I don't even know how many arguments, fights, and moments of insecurity that could have solved.
Right. But you, with your Libra moon, you need peace and balance as well. But the thing about the Libra sign, it's a very intellectual sign. Air signs are very intellectual. So you're going to find it in different ways. You're going to find peace and stillness in your life differently than Sophie's going to find it because of that air element. You're going to find it through talking to people, through conversing with people, through interacting with people, and from using your mind and your intellect, because that's that air quality, and through thinking things through from different scenarios and different perspectives. Libra, we're dealing with relationships and partnerships, but we're dealing with people. Our air signs connect us. Gemini, Aquarius, Libra, these are all air signs. They connect us to other people. So we need other people. So Sophie may not need anybody actually to feel secure except for herself. And that might be really important at times for you to remind her of that. Like, Sophie, hey, go meditate by yourself and find some grounding and security without me. That could actually be super key.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like that inconjunct, that actually might be hard for you to understand, because you actually find peace through connecting with other people. And you find that balance through connecting with other people because of that air quality.
Sophie,
right? And that's where that inconjunct comes in.
Yeah, when we met, Sophie, you used to say that I'm constantly flirting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm not flirting. I'm just like talking and getting to know people. And it was like men and women. Because when I meet people, I want like that spark of connection. Even if they're only serving us dinner at a restaurant, I feel like I want to connect.
And I don't. I'm like, don't talk to me. Like, I don't need, unless it's someone I really care about and someone I really want to connect with. I don't want that energy in my space. It's too overwhelming. I'm like, I've got enough going on with my own inner world. I don't need like I don't need conversation just to connect. Like, I don't want that. And again, it's not that, it's like the difference of, are you being an asshole versus like, no, you're just being who you are. You're just honoring who you are. And again, that's another way to check in with yourself and be like, no, I don't need to have small talk just to be polite. It's actually going against who I am as a person to just have small talk because that's what he likes to do. If he wants to talk to the waiter or waitress, by all means go for it, but I'm not going to pretend that I want to do the same. And I think that is a matter of self-respect to know more about yourself and know like, that's actually not in alignment with what will fill me up in this moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's where these things can be helpful. But having that Libra moon, I think that every Libra moon I've ever talked to has been called a flirt. Every
Really?
one of them. Yeah. Every Libra moon I've ever talked to has been called
Amazing.
a flirt. And yeah, so it's because Libras just, they're chatty, and they it's not that they're chatty. They like to connect with, they like to,
but
they like to find partners to
You're
connect
right,
with.
though.
Yeah.
Every Libra I've ever met is that way, and it's not a bad thing.
We're talking about Libra moons.
It's just the characteristic of a Libra.
I think Libra moon in particular, and if your Venus is in Libra, the sun signs, I mean, I would say Libra sun as well, to a certain degree, but the sun signs, because the other cosmic bodies are so powerful, they can actually water down the sun sign. It's interesting. And that's why I feel like some people will read their horoscope or they'll read their sun sign and they'll say, this isn't me. I don't believe in astrology. It's fake. Meanwhile, they are defining their world by their emotions, for instance, and their emotions were ruled by Libra or something that's not their sun sign. Because your emotions are what you need to feel fulfilled, right? And so then we start talking about their moon sign. They're like, oh my gosh, it's totally me.
Well, that's what's interesting about this conversation is what you're talking about is what fills or fulfills Sophie emotionally and what fills and fulfills me emotionally. And so I remember I used to say this to Sophie all the time. We've talked about this a lot over the years. That flirting is oftentimes not even about the charge about the other person. It's having a way to interact in the world that fills me up.
Exactly.
And then I can bring that same energy to our relationship.
Yeah.
But that's really, I totally understand now why that's hard for somebody to understand, who they just need the people in their little boundary.
You can't relate to
And I'm
it.
like, no, but I want that, and I want this, and I want this, and I want to connect to all these different people.
And I'm like, why?
Me up.
Why would you want to do that? That makes literally no sense, but it makes no sense to my brain and my being and my emotions. But to his, it does make sense. And so the more we can understand ourselves, the more that we can then understand our partner, and the more that we understand our partner's nuance in all of astrology and all of the things. Like, it's good to know all different types of, like we're learning about numerology. That's really cool. We're learning about human design. That's a really great aspect to it. It's all information just to gain so that you can see, is my partner more introverted, more extroverted? Wow, now that I see his astrology, it makes sense that he's an extroverted introvert, right? Like, it's just like so much knowledge that we can have, and we only live one life, and most of us live our lives with one partner. So why not know as much as we can about that person? Because guess what? It all comes back to us. The more information I know about my partner, who I'm choosing to have children with, be my life partner, that is so inspiring and motivating for me, because he's my mirror. And then it helps me to know more about myself and be a better version of who I am for him and for myself.
Right. Yeah.
Jill, what has been some stuff that, because astrology so well and you're connected to in a way, you already mentioned I need space by myself sometimes. What has helped with you and your partner when you were able to kind of point out differences that have allowed you to overcome things that otherwise would have been conflict?
I mean, I think that knowing the moon sign compatibility is really important. And yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. My husband and I are both Leos, and our son is a Leo. So we are a family of Leos.
Wow.
You're a pride.
We are a pride. I know, we're talking about having a second, or like, do we just go for another Leo? Like, would it be weird to like bring in a Virgo at this point or something?
Something to balance it out, maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, but it's interesting being married to the same sign. And a lot of people look at us like we're crazy, like, wow, two Leos together. Like, how does that work out? And knowing that we are both Leos, I think does really help in understanding that the low sides and the high sides. So for me, that's just key, understanding and being able to talk about it objectively, where it's not like this blaming, or you have issues, or this is your fault. It's like, hey, you're vibrating in the lower frequency of Leo right now, and so am I, and we're both trying to take control. Like, I remember probably one of our darkest moments in a relationship, and he's in the other room, so he can even come in here and attest, was when our son was about 3 months old, and we were both sleep deprived, and our son wasn't sleeping and we weren't sleeping. And it was like those low sides of Leo came out, because we both wanted to lead. We both wanted to say, okay, this is the problem. And then we would just argue over what our son needed. We argued over leading. And nobody got sleep, and we just ended up fighting. And I remember one night, my son finally did sleep, and we're still fighting, about who's right and who's going to lead, and Leo is all about leadership. And we were both in the low energies of Leo, and to step back from that situation and try and heal it, and try to heal the words that are said by looking at it from that lens and saying, okay, we were in the low vibratory states. How do we not go there? And if we do go there, how do we pull ourselves out of the downward spiral and get into the higher frequencies? So, and being two Leos is like, we understand each other so much. But then when we go to the low sides, we're now like two angry lions fighting with each other. Yeah. And so we have to kind of like understand that we have to extend the understanding to that space as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, if we look at it like with astrology in general, if we all have kind of like a lower and a higher frequency for every sign, or kind of like the shadowy side and like the shinier side, do you have tips for just anyone listening? So the first thing is awareness, knowing more about your signs, knowing more about you as a person, and then recognizing when you're in that lower frequency. What are some ways that a person could move towards some higher frequency and vibrate at that place of shininess and the best side of who they are? Like, are there some general tips for that, of how someone can get there?
I mean, I think that when, and speaking of, in the terms of partnerships, it's very hard when we're in our low side, because my husband does this all the time, to have your partner point it out. And for me, when like I'm in my low side and my husband's like, hey, you're in a downward spiral, I'm like, F you, buddy. Get out of my face. Like, who do you think you're talking to? And he'll even use my own words against me, and that's how I view it. He'll like, well, spirit daughter says, and I'm like, oh man, don't bring her into it.
That's amazing.
But I think, having sort of, I mean, to use the term like almost like safe words. I know we use those in terms of sex usually, but having safe words when you're arguing, to help point out that you decide at a time when you're calm. Like my husband, instead of like saying, you're in your low side, you're downward spiraling, like he'll just look at me and he'll go, breathe. And that's kind of like, and that's my cue from him, that like to take a step back and to try and breathe and see that I'm in the lower frequency. And then depending on your sign, on your moon sign, really, because I find that when we our sun sign has lower frequencies as well, but it's really our moon sign lower frequencies that really get us, because that's our emotion. And so knowing for you what helps you get out of that, and that's going to be different for every sign. So like for me with my moon in Scorpio, I need time alone. That's why I have a dedicated space in my home. I have a room that's my room. It has my crystals. It has my meditation cushion. It has, and it's like my cave. And when I'm in there, my husband like knocks. He knows not to just walk in. He knows not to bother me, quote unquote. Right. It's my space. And so for Scorpio moon, for instance, the low side is like very emotional, like intensely emotional, and everything is just like, everything is a huge catastrophe, right? Huge crisis in the lower side of Scorpio moon, and to get out of that, there just needs to be space, right? And there needs to be alone time. But for somebody with a Libra moon, that's going to be different. The low side of a Libra moon is going to be indecisiveness. It's going to be not knowing which direction to take. It's going to be not knowing what they need, not knowing really what they want in the moment. It's going to feel very different. It's not going to be as emotional. Our water signs, Scorpio, Cancer, Pisces, the lower vibrations of those are going to be overly emotional, overly dramatic. When we're dealing with the air signs, it has a more mental quality with it. So somebody like a Libra moon, it does help to talk things out. It does help, to do the walk and talk. Let's do some movement. Let's find some balance. Let's notice, what tools I can use. If I'm a Libra moon, I'm looking at tools here. What tools can I use to restore peace so that I feel centered, so I can decide one way or the other with whatever I'm struggling with in the moment. Taurus moon, earth sign is going to be very different, and your low side, you're going to shut everybody off. You're going to wall up, right? You're going to, that's that earth component. So I don't want to talk to anybody, and everybody leave me alone. I don't need you right now. Get out of my face, to get, and then, it's always like, well, what action do you take to fulfill your heart? And, that's why I said creating, creating something specifically with your hands will help you open your heart, right? And let people back in.
I love it.
On the earth sign. So there's sort of like a remedy, right? For every low side, there's a remedy and action you can take to get to the high side. And when we're dealing with moons, we're dealing with what can help you get out of that emotional place, that emotional shadow side.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Yeah.
So important. We always talk about how it's important for couples to know how to communicate. We talk about the 5 love languages and all these other things. And as Sophie mentioned, as we talked about before, Jill, this is one more point of information on the way your partner needs to hear things, the way your partner gets back to the core best version of themselves. And I was just writing when I was sharing about this that, don't trigger them. Don't look to your partner and go, hey, you're not doing great right now, right? That's not helpful. Right. Learn what it is that helps them get out of that space, and then put it in front of them and remind them of the good, right? Pull them towards the good. So many people think they're pointing the finger at somebody and going, hey, remember you're doing that thing that you don't want to do. Well, I'm in it right now. Don't point that out to me. It's not helpful.
Yeah. And like a supportive way to respond to that is like, if a D knows that I need to have time alone or work with my hands, he can be like, hey, I'm going to take the kids. You go, da, da, da. It's not even like, do you need that? Hey, I'm going to take the kids. You go do what you need to do. And he knows that it's either time alone or taking a bath or whatever it is, working with my hands, making dinner by myself, whatever it might be. It's like, it's a supportive way instead of like, oh, you're spiraling out. Why are you in such a shitty mood? It's like, no, let me just support my partner because we all want the same thing here. We all want two whole individuals that are vibrating on their highest frequency. That's what we both want for each other and for the relationship.
Right. Yeah. And cooking is great for you. Absolutely. Yeah. Tauruses love to cook. It's anything that involves like all the senses, that whole sensory experience is really great for Tauruses. Yeah. Libras. No.
I talk stuff out, man.
He talks stuff out, but also I feel like when he's done talking it out, like maybe if he's been using his talking it out too much during the day at work, what works for him is going silent, but still using his brain. So like he loves to DJ and he'll go by himself, listen to music, and he's creating, right? He's still like using his brain, but it's a different type of being on than talking with people. And I think that it's knowing to like take inventory of where you are in this moment. Like if I've been at hot springs for 3 days, then I don't want to take a bath. If like I'm feeling like I'm in a low vibration, I want to then do something else that might help me connect, like make dinner with friends, And so knowing where you've been, knowing what you're working with from your moon sign to your emotional body, to also just knowing what have I been taking inventory of, like the last few days, I've been really putting a lot of output on whatever it might be, being extroverted, connecting with friends, being on the phone a lot, having a lot of Zoom meetings. Okay, what is my intuitive body needing? What is my emotional body needing? Time alone doing something else that will serve.
Right. Yeah. And you have your Venus in Aries. So that adds another layer, which is interesting because it really.
I need the layer. This is Venus. I know Venus is about love. And so I need whatever insight you can give me about Sophie's love language. Yes.
So so in looking at relationships, that's what I suggest that, the three starter conversations are Sun, Moon, and then Venus. So Venus, your Venus sign is where Venus was when you were born. And Venus is it's love and it's beauty, but it's really how we connect with people. So the moon is like emotions, right? And what your heart craves and what your heart needs and what you need to feel fulfilled, your underlying needs, what you need to when you're feeling sad or discontent with life, what do you need to feel content and satisfied again? But Venus is really how you connect with people. So it's very important, obviously, in a relationship because we're dealing with love and we're dealing with how you connect to love, how you connect to beauty, how you connect to the things that are, the main ingredients of a relationship. So again, with you guys, we're dealing with another inconjunct. And I looked at your stuff and I'm like, man, they like the inconjunct. We're dealing with Aries, which is one sign before Taurus, and we're dealing with Virgo, which is one sign before Libra. So again, we're about 150 degrees away or so. And that depends on where exactly your Venus lands in the chart, how many exact degrees those are away. But so we're dealing with another place where you guys have to adjust, or you have to find common ground, where it's not going to come naturally. If I'm sitting here talking to, a Venus Taurus and a Venus Virgo, for instance, I would say, oh, you guys automatically know how to connect with each other. Bravo. Let's talk about that. But with you two, with the Aries and the Virgo, you don't automatically know how to connect.
Oh, his is Sagittarius, right? Virgo. Oh, you're right. It is a Virgo. Oh, it's Virgo. Got
it. Okay. Sag, now, if we were dealing with Sag, we'd be dealing with two fire signs.
Exactly. That's why I was like, oh, I'm excited to hear what she has to say about this. He's in Sag, but he's not. He's Sag. Okay.
He's Sag rising. Very different conversation, right? Aries, Sag, Venus versus Aries Venus, Virgo Venus. So, Aries Venus, Aries fire, right? Cardinal sign, starter, go, 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 go. So while your moon and your emotions, Sophie, and your sun are trying to ground you and give you still, there's a part of you that wants to connect with the outside world in a very explosive way. Mm-hmm. A very like, let's do this, let's go, let's come. And I know you, so I have that bias a bit. I've seen that in you, but just looking at the Aries Venus combo, it's just, you love life loudly, right? Mm-hmm. That's that Venus. It's like Aries is loud. Aries is loud, and Aries is also courageous, right? So Aries really, whenever we have Aries highlighted in the chart, it's an area where we're looking for pressure and we're looking for stress so that we can find courage. So for you, Sophie, you're actually going to seek out pressure and stress in your connections with others to help conflict. You conflict.
Just to simplify this for other people, Sophie will find the weak point and go right at it and go, this is not working. It's bothering me. We need to talk about it right now. And I'm like, it's 11:30 and I need to go to sleep. She's like, no, you can't go to sleep. Yeah. You got to talk about it right now.
Yeah. You could poll my friends. 100% of them will say this is true.
It's the warrior, right? Aries is the warrior. So it's the warrior lover, right? That's what the Aries Venus is like, you're not afraid of conflict, and you're actually going to connect with people, form relationships that cause conflict, that cause pressure, that cause stress in your life, so that you can develop the courage to face it, right? Because a lot of the chart is about our evolution and our growth, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just this like fixed thing that we've accomplished everything and we're like, oh, this is who I am and I've mastered all these things. No. It's what you're trying to master in this lifetime. It's your journey of this lifetime. It's all of your issues and all of your triggers and all of the solutions in one picture. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, you have this totally figured out, Sophie. It's like, no, you're figuring this out. You're figuring this out in this life. And for you to develop courage of the heart, and just courage in your spirit, and rise to that sort of benevolent warrior, high side warrior spirit, you're going to attract conflict in the way you connect with others naturally.
How do you offset?
Now, Virgo.
There you go.
Well, I mean, so luckily, in some ways, the Virgo component, we have the Virgo Venus components. The Virgo is very grounding, right? So your Virgo is that Virgo will help. But again, we're dealing with Aries Venus, Virgo Venus. How do they relate? How do they find common ground, right? Virgo Venus connects with the world logically. We're dealing again with intellect, right? Because Virgo is a very intellectual sign. It's ruled by Mercury. It's a highly intellectual sign. But there is with Virgo, because we have that, what do we want to call it? Goddess, virgin, feminine energy, which, all people have, regardless of your gender, you have feminine energy. We have that feminine energetic component, which is a bit softer than the Aries component, right? So the Virgo component is going to be a little softer in love. It's going to be more grounded. It's going to be more intuitive. It's going to be more feeling. It's going to be more emotionally based in a lot of ways because of that feminine side. And so really
when it comes to one planet, yes. One planet.
Well, now his son's there too.
I'll give him one. No, it's funny. It's funny that you see that, because even now I'm seeing him like in this different light. And it's crazy how we come into this world with like this map and this blueprint of who we are based on, like, let's say just astrology. Like, you're born, you have this blueprint, the sky is in a certain way, the moon, the planets are all in a certain way. It affects you. It affects your emotions. But then life happens and you're like, oh, I'm born as a man, so I need to put this outward, I have to project like this masculine energy, but he's a Virgo. That's a feminine sign. And he has this softness. And so just now, obviously can't see us, but I went in and hugged D because his Venus is in Virgo. And as Jill was talking, like, that's so true. Like he has this softness to him that comes through at times, but for the most part, he projects this masculine.
But when you get into those places, I'm definitely the person. When Sophie decides to pick one of her battles, which only happens like 4 times a week or so, I'm the guy who's like, hold on, baby, let's talk about this conversation from all the different angles. And sometimes she gets mad at me because I'm not taking her side per se, but I'm like trying to hold that grounded space, which I still let her fight. You can't hold this woman back, but there's a piece to it of just saying, you know what, let me just at least remind you kind of where the ground is. So as you're going around there murdering people left and right, you at least know kind of like where the base is to go back to. And I think
100%.
And I think what Sophie knows about me is that no matter how heated it gets, no matter how close the friendship, because this, again, we talked to you guys about this on this podcast, but like, we're talking family, we're talking the closest friends. Every relationship with Sophie, for those of you out there who are like, I can't wait to connect with Sophie.
Watch out.
Just be clear. No stone will be left unturned. Like, this woman will call you on anything she sees as being a problem, and you will be asked to answer to it. So it's so interesting that you say that, because other people in the world don't see that side to us. But
right.
Sophie projects. I think this is rising, right? You always explain to me that rising is the way other people see you.
Yeah.
Right.
And so everybody sees Sophie as like this person who just has all her shit together, and she just really.
Yeah. I always laugh about that. I'm like, isn't it funny that people see me as a Virgo? Because like, I am not a Virgo. Like, I am not. There's obviously aspects that maybe are. I'm an earth sign in many ways, and I'm very grounded, but I do not have it all together. And I'm not just like this sweet, feminine, like gentle child. That's just not me. And it never has been. I've got this fire in me. And it honestly made so much more sense when I saw my planets in Aries. I think I have 3 planets in Aries, and I've got some Scorpio.
Mercury, yeah.
I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. That feels like the total picture of who I am, unlike just being like Taurus, you know?
Pretty much like Virgo and Libra.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much.
You have the Sag rising. Virgo, I think an important point is that, we've thrown a lot of names around and energies, but at the heart of Virgo is service. And Virgo really is a sign of service. And a sign of, that's what, the virgin and the maiden and the goddess, were perfect, right? It's a sign of perfection, right? And so what do you do when you're perfect and you have no work and you have nothing to do? You serve, right? So that's the energy of Virgo, is one of service. And it's really about recognizing the gift within you, your gift, and brushing it off, your diamond in the rough, and knowing that it's good enough, and knowing that the world will see it as good enough, and then giving it to the world in the form of some type of service. And so, with all that Virgo, I think that's a key component to remember, even with the Virgo rising, that what you're doing right now is a service to others. I'm sure lots of people are listening.
It's what Ignited's all about. It's like our entire careers, everything is about service. That's where we can find that, I may look at an astrology, comparison of a DNI, and it might say you are mostly different, but in some ways similar. Well, the things that make us similar are the foundational things that really matter. We're both earth signs. We're both grounded. We both love to give and provide and be of service. And that's huge, because if you're in a partnership where the other one doesn't want to live in a life of giving service and providing, the energy and effort that he and I it's our heartbeat. We must give and provide in different ways. And so I find that like the things that do make us similar, though, are the ones that are really the foundational elements that keep us glued together.
Well, yeah, it's so funny that you say this, Jill, but for Sophie to be somebody who needs to be alone sometimes, she is in a career path where she gets DMs, I'm sure you do as well, from people all day, every day. And DMs on Instagram are nothing but service. For those of you who aren't aware of this, it's like all day people are asking you for help, for guidance, for what it is that makes you special, and they want a little bit of that for them. So she answers hundreds of them a day, and ignited the company that I started. It was all about helping people find their path and find their purpose. So it speaks exactly to this. And there's a beauty in it that comes, but if you're connected to somebody that really wants status and money and to live the glitzy jet setter life, that's going to be some serious incompatibility sometimes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, in terms of speaking of your Venuses, when Sophie is in that sort of warrior stance and connecting with people from that fiery, energy, it's important to remind her of that service. And that's where that grounded Virgo in Venus comes in to help her, to remind her. And maybe that could be like your word to her when she's in sort of that explosive state, like service, not even like, how is this serving you or how is this serving others, but just like, hey, service. Like, remember, that's one of the places where we have found common ground for you guys with the 2 in conjuncts we talked about. It's so key to find those common grounds and use those and find those key words that help bring you back there when you are in this place. Like, what is this person thinking? I can't even wrap my head around where they are right now, and really reminding her, because for the Venus and Virgo piece, really that is connecting with people through service. It's like, I look at the Libra moon and the sun in Virgo and the Venus in Virgo, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of connecting with people, talking to people, being of service to people, using both, your intuition and your logic. How do we find balance in those things? I mean, that's what, you said, I'm all Libra and Virgo. It's like, we're looking at how to balance out logic, femininity, intuition through communication and connecting with other people, with this like highest aspiration of how to be of service.
I love it. Look, I didn't even get to touch on how crazy this last year has felt, how crazy the year that we're in right now feels.
I guess everyone knows that.
I know, but look, when you have a soothsayer in front of you, you want to be able to talk about it. So I feel like that might require an entirely different episode from us.
Yeah.
We're going to give people links to all your stuff, because I feel like after learning so much about the nuance, right? To me, this is all about that little nuance. So many of us have learned about our sun signs. We're like, yeah, all right, whatever. It's kind of cool. I'm a little organized sometimes, but then I'm not,
And a bit.
That's great.
Yeah.
But to me now, what I understand in a way that I haven't before is the nuance and the relationship between the charts that you need to truly understand. And I mean, I have a PhD. I'm not going to start learning about how to do this again. So I always defer back to the experts who already know how to do it. So we will give people links to all your amazing work and all your stuff so that they can learn about that nuance in their own relationships and get one more of those tools to really help take them to the next level, because that's so powerful. So why don't you tell us like the best places for people to meet you, understand you, and get your knowledge, and then we'll share all those links for them.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Spirit Daughter. My website is spiritdaughter.com. And then I will give you the blog. I have a blog on relationships, and I will be doing some video talks coming up on relationships as well, which I will link you guys to.
Yay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we ask all of our guests 5 questions. First thing that comes to mind, there's no pressure, just like, and you can take your time.
Okay. Oh, that's nice.
And I think you can tie it to the specific topic we talked about here today, or just have a nugget that really resonates for you otherwise in life. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh man. The best advice I think I ever received was probably from my dad at some point, where I was having a really hard emotional time, and he was like, Jill, just go sit by the ocean and watch the waves. I was younger, I was in my teens, and breathe with the waves. And it was like before, I was a teenager, and it was before I was really doing like meditation or anything. And there's a reason why I live by the beach, I guess, because that just stuck with me. But it really worked.
That's the answer, right? Is right there, right? It's breath, and it's just sinking to nature. Period. End of day.
End of day. Right.
Yeah.
What has been one of your proudest moments to date?
Probably the birth of my son. It's an easy one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Baby
What
Bodhi.
about on the flip side, the shadow, one of your hardest moments?
I think probably that moment I was talking about with my husband and I, the postpartum time. Having my son, I had extreme postpartum anxiety. I didn't have depression. I had extreme postpartum anxiety, and I was sleep deprived, and we weren't getting any sleep, and it got really dark, and it was really hard to remember all the things that I know and get to my higher frequencies. It was really, really challenging. I've been through some really challenging times in my life. I mean, I'm divorced, and I'm on my second marriage, and I went through a really traumatic divorce, and still that postpartum time was the hardest. Yeah.
But
all the postpartum moms out there.
Yeah, all postpartum moms out there.
We see you.
We have some amazing episodes, actually, if we go back, and I'll link them actually in the show notes, with some women that really talk about that time period and how to get support from your partner properly and how to support yourself properly. It's a real time that people suffer, go through a lot. Postpartum is not just a few months after, it can last a year. I think I was honestly in it with Noah for 2 years. I was just in it. I breastfed her till 16 months, and it just, so just know that like, there's no judgment, just getting the help that you need. So go to those references or send it to a friend that might be in it right now. What about your self-care rituals? How do you take care of yourself?
Self-care for me is a constant evolution. And it is like a battle I have, because one of my greatest challenges is boundaries. And I think that self-care for me really comes down to placing proper boundaries with myself and with other people, especially now that, I do have a successful platform, and like we were talking about Instagram, it's like people are always asking you, and you just can't, I can't keep giving. Nobody can keep giving. So self-care for me really is about figuring out how to set boundaries and not feeling guilty and being okay with them. And then, I have the classic self-care, which is like meditation every morning, journaling. I've been doing baths every other night, which is pretty amazing. And again, that's like a boundary thing. It's like I have to carve out those times for myself and create those boundaries, separating me from the rest of the world to give myself care.
100%. And so you can better provide and give and be of service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We mentioned this podcast is called Ignited. What is it that ignites you?
I think being of service. I have that in my chart as well. But I've always said like I'm on a mission to like save the world. And I've actually had a lot of therapy sessions about that, where my therapist is like, you don't have to save the world. And I'm like, but I do. Okay?
We do though.
But I
yes,
do.
We do.
I do. Because it does, you guys know it can be depleting, and it can be hard. And there's times when I want to run away and, go to the mountaintop and not talk to anybody. But at the end of the day, that's really what does ignite me. And my passion is helping others and helping others feel their intuition, understand their higher frequency, raising their vibration, unraveling their own consciousness, understanding our own consciousness, and what that means. I
love it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thanks for letting me understand my wife better. I have a feeling this specific episode will come in very handy. And again, thank you for all the work you do for everybody else to help them have some more insight into their life and the life of people close to them. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's great chat. Getting into we adore you. Personal. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. If you're listening, obviously, tag Sophie and me and Ignited and Spirit Daughter and let us know what resonated the most. What did you learn from today's episode? And share this with anybody who could benefit from it. Bye, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews.
And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignite It so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.